Hi, it's Nikki Lowe, and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show. I'm your host, and for nearly 2 decades now, I've been an executive coach and leadership development consultant. And on this show, I share evidence-based insights from my coaching, leadership, and psychological expertise, and inspiring interviews that help women like you to combine your work, life, and motherhood in a more successful and sustainable way. Join me and my special guests as we delve into leadership and lifestyle topics for women, empowering you to thrive one conversation at a time. I'm so happy that you're here, and let's get on with today's episode. If you've ever had to defend a budget, sell a strategic project to a skeptical executive, or secure headcount without ruffling feathers, you already know negotiation isn't just for deal makers. It's the daily craft of modern leadership. And layer in motherhood, and you're navigating high-stakes influence at work and the quiet negotiations of time, energy, and mental load at home. Today, we're going behind the scenes with someone who's negotiated in the most high-stakes situations imaginable. Former police hostage negotiator Nigel Taberner. Over a decade on the negotiation front line, Nigel successfully resolved over 130 life-at-risk incidents, from armed sieges to suicide interventions, with no loss of life. Across a 30-year career with Greater Manchester Police, Nigel rose to detective inspector in counter-terrorism operations before turning his skills to helping leaders communicate under pressure and negotiate when you have nothing to give away. He's also helped train new generations of negotiators in the UK and overseas, and even the FBI. And in this conversation, we're lifting practical tools from the front line so you can influence more effectively in the boardroom and create more understanding at home. So think less confrontation and more connection. And I hope you enjoy Nigel and this conversation as much as I did. Although he's kind of working in an elite space, his approach is so down to earth, and he shares real practical insights that might just blow your mind on the superpowers behind negotiation, and they might not be what you think they are. So I won't keep you any longer. Let's dive in. So welcome, Nigel. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, it's no problem. It's nice to be with you.
This is a conversation that I've been really looking forward to having. I think we connected via somebody that we mutually know in our network, Mike, and I had heard Mike raving about you. And this is a subject that I think is such a powerful one, and your background and experience. I can't wait to dive into it.
Oh, grief. Don't put me under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, put you on the pedestal now.
Give me a man with a gun anytime.
But we did have a quick chat, didn't we? Oh, God, quite a few weeks ago now. And I just loved the brief conversation that we had. And I just knew that, we're going to have fun with this.
Cool. Right. What do you want to know? It's very rarely you get a tame hostage negotiator sat in front of you. So what do you want to know? Where do we start with
I want to know everything. But I always love to start, how do you get into doing what you do? That always fascinates me about people. So tell us a bit about what led you to become this hostage negotiator.
Yes, it was a long journey for me. It was one that started when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, when the idea entered my head that I wanted to be a police officer. I had no idea why. It was all to do with TV. It was to do with TJ Hooker and stuff like that back in the day. But I kind of planted the seed. I wanted to be a police officer. All the way through school, kind of maintained that. But I was your typical teenage boy. You know, I switched on about 6 months before my O-levels, worried my parents sick, completely blew my O-levels. So the plan of joining the police, going to sixth form college, then university, joining as a graduate, whistling through the ranks, that was just dead in the water. I was working in a bus building factory in Wigan, age 16. But I never lost that itch. You know, it was still there. So I went to night school, resat my exams, and applied for Greater Manchester Police when I was 21, which was the minimum age they were recruiting. I got in, and I suppose I just had a really normal policing career. I mean, it started off in Moss Side, which was interesting back in the early 90s. So it was a great place to learn your trade. I enjoyed it. It's probably wrong to say it, but it was exciting. For a young police officer, a young lad, it was exciting. It was all fast cars and drugs and the odd gun and stuff like that. But there's a saying in the police that, a moving target is harder to hit. So we tend to move around a little bit. So I went to riot squad, went into training, and eventually found my way to Manchester Airport. But all the time I'd been looking at an advert that kept coming out periodically for hostage negotiators. And I was looking at that job and thinking, that is just the job for me. It's not a full-time role. You do it on top of your day job.
Oh,
so it's a voluntary role on top of your day job. But you had to be quite a high-ranking officer. It started off as superintendent, but it started sort of gently ticking its way down until at one point it said you needed to be a supervisor. And that was me straight in there because it ticked every box for me in terms of why I joined the police. So I wanted to join the police for two reasons. I wanted to fight crime at the highest level, and I wanted to protect vulnerable people. Those were my drivers. That was what got me up in the morning, and the job was absolutely perfect. Nearly didn't apply for it. You get that silly little voice in your head, the one that goes something like, "Oh, come on, Nige, you, hostage negotiator. You're in a force of 8,000 people. There's so many officers who are more resilient than you, better communicators than you, better connected. Do you know what? Just better than you." I took advice off far too many people. It was going to affect my mental health. I wasn't going to be able to protect my family from the sort of incidents that I was going to. It wasn't going to be the career development move that I thought it was going to be. Well, they were dead right about that, because I spent more time negotiating with my bosses about negotiating than I did negotiating with the people I was actually supposed to be negotiating with. There was a real kind of rub between what they considered to be my day real job and what many people actually considered to be kind of a hobby. But I filled the application form in, and it was life-changing for me. The skills that I learned on those first kind of crazy courses that I went on didn't just make me a good hostage negotiator. They made me a better police officer. For certain, they made me a better leader. But it had an impact in ways that I never had envisaged. It made me a better husband, a better father, a better friend, because the skills that I was learning just transcended all those different areas of my life. And the only thing that was different was the level of risk. I was using the same skills with my kids that I was using with people with guns, with kidnappers. And I was using the same skills with my staff in work, the team I was running. And the same skills that I share now with business. It's just hostage negotiators rarely negotiate.
And I remember you saying this to me, and my brain went, "What?" So tell me more about that then.
Well, the sort of instance that you go to, you've got nothing to give away. So people think that hostage negotiators go to these incidents because they're highly trained and they're experienced, that they've got this suite of Jedi mind tricks that they can use to get people to do things differently. And there are no Jedi mind tricks. My job as a negotiator is to connect with somebody, to get them to like me, to get them to trust me. And at that point, I've actually earned the right to be able to influence them and persuade them to do things differently. So actually, hostage negotiation it's all about connection, influence, and persuasion. It's not about negotiation. If there's an armed siege in a bank and somebody's in there with stockings over their head and sawn off shotguns and they've got 40 hostages, there's no deal. It's not, well, I'll tell you what, you have 20 and I'll have 20. I've got to win, but I've got to get that individual on side. I've got to create a relationship with them. I've got to get them to like me, get them to trust me, and then I can get them to do things differently. So actually, we're influencers, not negotiators. But hostage influencer just sounds a little bit rubbish.
Yeah, because your website, you've got a phrase on your website, haven't you? And when I clicked on that, it really is powerful. It's negotiating when you've got nothing to kind of give, and that I think is so powerful, as you say. I think you said to me, the best that I can do is maybe you walk out and we don't shoot you, or, we have a conversation about what your sentence might be, but that's out of your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. So if, If I've got a man barricaded in a house, he's got hostages, he's got a gun in there, what's the deal? What can I possibly offer him to get him to come out? And the only deal on the table that I can strike with him is if you come out now with your hands up, we won't kill you. You're not going to get shot. That's not a very compelling deal. And actually, it gets worse because if you come out now with your hands up, we won't kill you. But what we will do, because of the offences that you've committed, is we'll arrest you. We'll put you before a court. You're going to get 15 to 20 year custodial sentence, and you're going to come out in 15, 20 years' time with no job, no home, no money, no prospects. Who on earth is going to buy a deal like that?
When you put it like that, it's powerful.
Well, negotiate with people like that. It's like going into a high-stakes poker game and looking down at your hand and you've got 2 Uno cards and a beer mat. You know, the worst possible hand imaginable. But I've got to win.
Yeah. So tell me about that then. What have you learned over this kind of amazing career? And you've gone to over, is it 130?
130 incidents in 10 years. And thankfully never lost anybody. And that was a wide variety of different types of incident. But what did I learn? I suppose ultimately I learned that hostage negotiation isn't difficult. It is really not difficult if you get your head around a couple of key concepts. So first of all, it's not a negotiation. Don't have negotiations. Don't go into work and negotiate with union leaders. Please don't try and negotiate with your kids because you'll only lose anyway. But don't try and negotiate with them. Have a conversation with a purpose. Have a meaningful conversation. That is all a negotiation is. It's a conversation with a purpose. I know where I am now. I know where I want to get to ultimately. And all I've got to do is find my way from A to B. And how do we do that? It's dead simple. We get people talking, we keep them talking, and we listen like our life depends on it. And if we do that, 9 times out of 10, the problem actually, the situation resolves itself. Because if I can get you talking and keep you talking, you will tell me things that you never intended. And all the time as a negotiator, I'm thinking, what did she say? What did she mean? How can I use that? And that is how we get the information that we need to be able to create that picture, to find out what's going on in their world, to get them to tell us their story so that we actually understand what's going on. And at that point, we can help them. We can help them by making suggestions, reframing the situation, all those things that we're able to do. Whereas most of the time, as we go through life, we're that busy in work, that busy at home, we just go straight into problem-solving mode straight away. Before we even know what the problem is, we've got a solution and we've got to back up if that doesn't work.
Yeah. So could you give me an example of where this might play out? I imagine the stuff you can't talk about, but an example that you could perhaps share where you got somebody talking that may not have wanted to, kept them talking, and then did that listening like your life depended on it.
Yeah, so it was a guy. He was barricaded in a house. It was East Manchester. I'm trying not to give too much away, so you can't find it online. But it was East Manchester. One of the first. It was actually the first incident that I ever went to. Barricaded inside a house. He'd got a gun. He said that he poured petrol around the ground floor of the house, and there was a baby in there with him. So it was a high risk negotiation, and he wasn't giving us the time of day. He just wouldn't connect with me. I was trying every trick in the book, and actually the key to the door with him was just finding something that connected us, finding something that we'd got in common, and just starting that conversation. Because the most difficult thing about these kind of, you look at it and you think, oh, where on earth am I going to start? We start with finding something that connects us. And then we move on from there. Because the most difficult part of the conversation is actually getting them talking. Once you've got them talking, actually keeping them talking is actually quite straightforward. It's all about keeping the focus on them. It's not about me as a negotiator. It's not about me going in and solving their problems, making all these suggestions. It's about giving them room in the conversation. So if I'm talking more than 20% of the time, I'm talking too much. Because if I'm talking, I'm learning nothing. If you're talking, I'm learning stuff. And I'm going to use that in order to influence you. And it's no different whether you're dealing with people that you supervise at work, whether you're chatting to your kids, whether you're interviewing somebody on a podcast. I mean, you listen to this podcast back afterwards and you have a look at how much talking you're actually doing. I bet you've been talking for less than a minute in total. But you've got me absolutely spilling my guts and telling you all sorts of stuff. And if you keep me talking, I will tell you things that prior to this podcast I was thinking, right, I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to say that, and I'm not going to say that. But you give me room in the conversation, and it'll come out. It always does. And that's how we get the information that we need, how we paint that picture, how we deal with emotions, because it's cathartic when they start getting this off the chest. When somebody turns around to me and I mention Dad and he says, don't even mention his name again. We're not talking about him. It's like, ooh, who do we need to talk about? We need to talk about Dad. But I've got to develop a relationship with him that allows me to kind of work my way around the problem and start talking about Dad from a different angle, sometimes without them even noticing.
So going back to that situation then, this guy barricaded himself in. What was the outcome? What happened? And if there's any little bits that you can share. So you were trying to find this point of connection. What did you find and how did you find that? Because as you say, if they're not giving you much, is it just a lot of luck, or are you using your sensory acuity to pick up?
There's a lot of luck in it. I mean, it's about being yourself. Most people who fail hostage negotiators courses fail for one reason. It's because they try to be a hostage negotiator. I've just got to go in and be me, but not just me, the best version of me that is going to influence you. And that might be a completely different person from the me that I've got to be to influence somebody else. So right from the very start, I'm thinking about kind of personal branding. As I walk in there, which version of me do I need to be? I'm thinking about this balancing act that we very often, as negotiators, have to kind of dance around really between competence and warmth. What balance do I actually need there to be able to influence you? Do I need to just push that warmth a little bit, or will that be seen as weakness? So I need to just bring that down a little bit and just show that, I'm competent, I'm well-meaning, I can sort this mess out for you. I can help you to sort this mess out. I'm the right person to be here to speak to you. So yeah, it's about people, and it's about being the best version of you to be able to influence that person. Connect with them, get them to trust you, and then actually the influence is that top little bit.
And that's so powerful, because we often think that these are specialist skills, as you say, that you would take years to hone. But there's some fundamentals as that foundation piece. And as you were talking about that competence and warmth, I'm thinking, how relatable is that in a professional setting, particularly for women? Because we're constantly making this where, we want to be agreeable and we want to be seen as nice. But if we're not careful, that becomes across as weak. But if we're too leaning into the competence, we're seen as, oh, she's a hard-nosed whatever, and we're constantly playing that. And it's really interesting hearing you say that in that setting.
Yeah, and it is a real interesting balancing act. I mean, there's a lot of research that's been done on first impressions, personal branding, and they come up with that, like I said, that kind of seesaw really in terms of warmth and competence. So warmth isn't about being soft and kind of pink and mushy. It's about, are my intentions good? Am I a good person? And the competence, not confidence, because we've all worked with people who can fake it to make it. That competence is about, am I high performing? Can I do what it says on the tin? And as I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this guy, I'm thinking, who do I need to be? And if things aren't working, how do I adjust that? So yeah, it's one of the key balancing acts that we have. But yeah, you kind of talk about all this skill set that we have as hostage negotiators. The hostage negotiator superpower is actually dead simple. It's the ability to listen. The ability to listen like a life depends on it. We're just so rubbish as a society. We are so rubbish at listening. And actually, if we did more of it, we'd get a lot more information and we would be more influential. I mean, the number of people who ask me as I go around working with businesses now, what's the one thing that I need to do now to be more influential? What's the one thing I need to do to be a better negotiator? And my answer to them is unequivocal. If you want to be a better negotiator, if you want to be more influential, you want to be a better leader, become a better listener. The number of times as a negotiator, I went to incidents and inexplicably after 40, 45 minutes, people would say to me, can I put the knife down now? Can I come down now? Can we end this now? And I'd say to them, yeah, sure, come on. And as we're walking back to an ambulance or a police car or something like that, I'd say to them, if you don't mind me asking, why? Why did you change your mind? And the number of times that people have said to me, because nobody has ever listened to me like that before.
Oh, that's just made me emotional, Nigel. Yeah.
It just really tells a story about how well we listen. You can always tell when somebody's not listening because they'll say to you, go on, I'm listening. If you have to tell somebody that you're listening, it's clearly because you are doing something else. You've normally got a phone in your hand. You're tapping away. Yeah, go on, I'm listening. Or you're tapping away on your computer. Yeah, go on. I am listening. The number one rule about listening is you cannot multitask. You need to create room for it. You need to give it the respect that it deserves, but it will pay you back tenfold. It really will. It will pay you back so many times over. I say if you want to become more influential as a business, invest more time in listening within your company. If you want to be a better sales team, listen more. But we don't. It's the first thing that goes, and it's very often replaced by that premature problem solving, right from the very start.
I remember when I did my coach training 20 years ago, I walked into it going, I'm good at listening, and realised what a poor listener I was. I was a conversational listener, so I was listening to respond. And I know for hostage negotiators, am I right in saying that actually you will have multiple people listening at any one time, so that you're collaborating over actually what are we hearing here?
So potentially, it depends on the situation. We never negotiate on our own. So there's no such thing as the hostage negotiator. There's always at least two of us. So you've got one who's in that forward-facing role. They're the only one that's talking. It's like one singer, one song. They are the negotiator, but actually they're not the important one. The important one is stood directly behind them, whispering in their ear, encouraging them, telling them when they've missed something, or whispering in your ear. He's mentioned his mum 3 times now. Oh, I haven't clocked that. Because with the best will in the world, whilst I'm really focusing, I'm really listening at kind of level 2, I'm also thinking about where I'm going to take this conversation, how I'm going to respond. So somebody who's just behind me purely listening is always going to pick up on more, which is why we never work on our own. If it's a very high risk involved job and we're working remotely, so I'm not stood in somebody's garden looking up at a bedroom window, I'm actually in a police station in a negotiation cell, yes, there would be a group of us, probably 5 or 6. Everybody's got sort of headphones on, everybody's listening, still only one person talking, but everybody is feeding that individual information.
And I want to move on to these kind of elite listening skills in a moment, but before we do that, I was just imagining you at that specific kind of encounter. It's your first live negotiation. You've got a situation where you've got a gun, you've got potential petrol, you've got a baby. I imagine your emotions would have been quite heightened. So what were you doing to manage yourself? Because I imagine part of this is how do you manage your own internal process?
Yeah. I suppose there's a couple of things. One, when I was on my way to this incident, so I was in the office, I got the phone call. It was literally my first deployment as a negotiator. Nigel, we've got this guy barricaded in a house. He's got petrol, he's got a gun, he's got a baby. Could you just go and have a chat with him? So I'm hurtling down the motorway towards this, and my phone went off my pocket, and it's the negotiator that I'm going to be meeting there that is going to be working with me. He is really experienced. He'd been doing it for 8 to 10 years. He was a high-ranking officer. And the first words out of his mouth were, "Hi, Nigel, I take it you're going to take the lead on this one." And everything in me wanted to say, "No, do you know what? You take this one and I'll sit back and watch." And I just thought, if I do that, the next one becomes so much more difficult. When you put this stuff off, the next one becomes more. And I just heard, it was like an out-of-body experience. I heard my own voice go, "Yeah, of course I will, mate." And I got there. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. It doesn't matter if it's your first job or whether it's your 130th job. You get exactly the same physiological response. You can't fight your own biology. Your heart is still going to be pounding in your chest. You're still going to have butterflies. You're still going to, your hands are going to be shaking because you've lost that kind of fine motor control. And it's because your body's doing what your body is supposed to do in order to protect you and allow you to defend yourself. So you can't fight it. It's going to happen. What you've got to do is work with it. And you still think, you know what, my stomach I've got butterflies because that's the blood running away from my stomach to my arms and my legs so I can fight. My heart's pounding because the big muscle groups need that. So it's just doing what it's doing. And it's because thousands of years ago in the Serengeti, when you were walking towards this thing and it had got huge teeth, you had to work out whether it was breakfast or you were breakfast. And that was what your body needed, that fight or flight thing. You can't fight it. You've just got to roll with it. I just used to look round and laugh and think, do you know what? I can't see any saber-toothed tigers round here.
Brilliant. To almost kind of reframe it.
Yeah, there's no saber-toothed tigers round here. I'm good. I still get it now. You know, when I speak on stage in front of 600 people, I still get it. Doesn't matter how many times I do it. You can't fight your own biology. I now look around the room and think, can't see many ex-hostage negotiators in here. And just make light of it, because it's still going to happen.
Yeah, and and that suggests to me that you really care. Like if you're not getting on stage and going, "Oh, I'm just giving the same old talk that I've given 100 times. I care about doing a good job here," and I love that. So we were talking about the kind of listening like your life or somebody's life depends on it, and it's almost like these elite listening skills. So if we've got people listening to this kind of going, maybe I could kind of up my listening ability, what would you suggest? Because it's easy to go, just listen better. Like what might be some of the tips or strategies that we can use?
You can't just listen better. That's about focus. Focus is one part of listening. It's about pinning my ears back and kind of just trying to maintain that sense of focus on what you're saying. That's only part of the picture. Listening is about actually picking out what you're saying, the nuances in what you're saying, because I'm concentrating and I'm thinking not just about the words that you're saying, but how you're saying them, what your body language is like at the time. And trying to work out what's important. The biggest problem that we've got when it comes to listening, to conversation management, and therefore getting information, is that we ask too many questions. So there's this perception that if you want to know more information, ask more questions. No, don't ask more questions, because all you do is you turn a conversation into an interrogation. You turn it into an interview. People don't like it. Kids, if you've got kids, they certainly don't like it.
I've got a 12-year-old son that's tipping into teenage years, and he's making it very clear.
As soon as you start asking them questions, they will shut you down straight away. So what you got to do is use tactics that don't make it sound like you're asking them a question. So if they say something and you want to know more about it, don't ask a question. Just repeat the word that you want to know more about. So, I mean, an example would be if I said to you, I'm going on my holidays. What is the natural response? Now, no pressure here, Nikki, to get it right, but what is the normal response?
Where are you going on holiday?
Excellent. Well done. Yes, I'm going to go to Corsica. Oh, never been to Corsica before. Been to Cape Verde. Really nice Cape Verde. Went there for a couple of weeks last year. The people are really nice. It's only a 5-hour flight. You're given all this information about your wonderful trip to Cape Verde. You've completely forgotten about the fact that actually I'm the one going on my holidays, because you've got to tell me all about that because you're excited about it. Actually, I'm going on my holidays because I need to get away. But we're not having a conversation about that. I'd like to think if you said to a hostage negotiator, I'm going on my holidays, they would quizzically put their head on one side and go, holidays? They've taken their turn in the conversation. And now it's your go again. So you're going to tell me what you want to tell me without me directing you. So you might turn around and say, yeah, do you know what? I just need to get away for a few weeks. I'll say, oh, get the impression that work's getting you down a bit. No, it's not work. My mother-in-law's been a bit unwell. We've got her some respite care and we're going away for a couple of weeks. We're now having a completely different conversation than we were, the question-led approach that we would all go down, because we're directing that conversation. So we will, it's like playing table tennis. Every time you say something, I'm just tipping that ball back over the net again. I'm making it your turn. And the beauty of that kind of echoing is you get zero thinking time as well. If somebody says to you in the office, we're supposed to be a team, you kind of think, oh, what's the question I'm going to ask? And it'd normally be something like, well, what do you mean by supposed? Which sounds really defensive. Or, well, we are, which is actually, next time somebody in the office says we're supposed to be a team, just go, supposed. They have got zero thinking time. It's now their turn in the conversation again, and they've got to come good on what supposed actually means. So, yeah, if your kid says something at the dinner table and you think, well, I want to know more about that, don't ask a question. Just echo it. Mike was a nightmare in English. If you go, Mike was a nightmare in English today. Nightmare? They do not see it as a question. They see it as you taking your turn in the conversation, and it's theirs, and they will tell you more about it. And if they do turn around and give you the teenage blocking defence, which is, yeah, just go, tell me about it. Again, a tell me question is not seen in the same way as a, well, what did he do? What did she say? Why did you do that? Tell me is like more inviting them to tell you something rather than actually demanding information off them, which is what a question is seen as. So it's just subtle stuff like that makes it your turn. Using fog language. If I'm chatting to a guy and he mentions his daughter, I don't immediately go, oh, you need to put the knife down because you've got a daughter. I want to know everything about the daughter. So I say, oh, tell me about your daughter. They'll start telling me stuff. And when they get to the end of that sentence, I'll go, oh, she sounds like the apple of Daddy's eye. I've said nothing, but I've taken my turn of the conversation, made it his again. So he tells me more about your daughter. We get to the end and I go, oh, sounds like she's got you wrapped around her little finger. Taken my turn again, said nothing. I've now got 3 lots of information for the price of 1, just by making it their turn, keeping the focus on them. You can't do it all the time. But we just all we do is manipulate the conversation rules. So the conversation rules are my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. Don't interrupt, it's rude. And a conversation has got to have a natural conclusion. If somebody says something to you, you can't just walk off. You've got to reply. So all we do is we just make it their turn quickly. We add as little as we possibly can, make it their turn. So they're the one that the focus is on. They're the one that's doing all the talking. I'm the one that's getting all this information. And actually, when I work out what their values and beliefs are, what really matters to them, what their currency is, then I'm going to use all this information to get them to do things differently. That is where the influence comes in, but that is the top 2%. The rest of it is all about relationship building. Get them talking, keep them talking, and everything just flows from that if you're listening.
And it sounds so simple. And I suppose in many ways it is, but actually that's really difficult to do for normal human behavior. As you said, there's almost like these rules, or what we've been conditioned. The smartest person in the room is the one that speaks the most, rather than actually the smartest person in the room is the one that listens the most. And yeah, and actually managing ourselves to that, I'm going to be open, I'm going to be curious, I'm going to hold all information lightly and then see what emerges from that. I'm trained in something called Gestalt coaching, and we talk about the fertile ground, that everything has equal kind of importance, and see what emerges. And I'm imagining you doing that as you're talking.
Yeah, and it's all about curiosity. That's it. People will say to me, "Oh, you negotiate for 12 hours. How could you listen to somebody for 12 hours? That's not possible." It is if you're curious, if you're genuinely interested and curious. If you want to find out what people, for me, it was always about finding out what people's why is. I was never particularly bothered about what they were doing and how they were doing it. That's not what's going to solve this. What's going to solve it is actually working out what their why is, what their emotions are, what the drivers are. And then using that, and that's where it starts to become fascinating, when you start to find out what's going on underneath the surface.
And I'm just sitting here thinking, and you've used that for such good in the world. You've those 130 plus incidents where you've made a real difference just with that genuine curiosity and desire to kind of help, using your curiosity. And now obviously you've taken that from the police and you now go into organisations and help leaders and professionals with these skills. And tell me a little bit about that work. So what do you do, and how does this translate? What are the type of things that you're seeing people do in organisations that are making a difference?
Yeah, so when I was sat on that first hostage negotiators course, it was a light bulb moment for me. It was 10 years before I retired from the police, but I knew then exactly what I was going to do when I retired, because I could see the skills that were being taught were so applicable to the world of business. It wasn't just about negotiating, it was about good communication, it was about influence, it was about persuasion, it was dealing with difficult people, having difficult conversations, and just establishing links with people, meaningful links with people, all of which is so applicable into the world of business. So now, yeah, I work with companies across the board, really, mainly conference speaking. So I speak at conferences around various themes, negotiate when you've got nothing to give away, listening like a life depends on it, lessons from the edge of chaos, all that kind of stuff. So storytelling sessions, but with those key takeaways that make people go away better communicators and more influential. So that's the majority of what I do, but I also do a lot of half-day workshops, so interactive workshops where we don't just look at the stories, we look at what's going on behind the story. So you get to work out what I'm thinking as a negotiator, the skills that I'm using to be able to influence people. So a half-day interactive workshop. I don't turn people into hostage negotiators, but I turn them into skilled listeners and communicators, from CEOs to people who sit in forward-facing roles on the front desk of businesses. The skills are exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the level of risk.
Powerful stuff, because I know that you've kind of gone over and worked with the FBI, helping them with some of these skills. So to get access to that as kind of individuals in our everyday kind of organisational life, that's powerful stuff. So if there's somebody listening going, can you give me a couple of kind of key takeaways? And it might be something that you've already said or another skill that you can layer on. What is it that you would want somebody listening to take away about what they can be doing to have more influence and persuasion?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, really. One, the best piece of advice I was ever given as a hostage negotiator was plan for the first 60 seconds of any interaction, any difficult conversation. Have a strategy, know what you want to take it in the long term, but we plan meticulously for that first 60 seconds. And we do it quite specifically by working out what our opening line is going to be, and then practicing it out loud and in the first person over and over and over again. So as I'm going to this job, I'm thinking, there's a guy in the house with this gun. What is my opening line going to be? And I'm practicing it out loud. If there's somebody with me, a traffic officer who's taking me there, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to tell you what my opening line is. Shout at me, swear at me, cry at me, tell me you can't help. I'm going to do it over and over and over again. Because it means when I get there, not only do I know what I'm going to say, I know when I open my mouth exactly what I'm going to sound like. So I've got an idea of that balance between the warmth and confidence, because I've heard myself say it. It helps you get rid of those nerves. The worst thing is the anticipation. As I'm being driven to that job, my heart is thumping out of my chest. You're thinking the worst all the time you go in there. Actually, when you get there and you start talking, you just very, very quickly settle into it and you're away, which is why we say practice meticulously for that first 60 seconds, because that's your first impression. And we put horns and halos on people very, very quickly. We decide in the blink of an eye whether we like them or not, whether we trust them or not, whether they think they're competent or capable or not. So we've hit that kind of first impression. Our personal branding has been established. And actually, if you think about the worst interview you've ever had, the worst presentation you've ever had to do, 60 seconds in, you were on your bike and away. Because the anticipation is always worse than the main event. So the first thing I would say to anybody, if you're going into any kind of difficult conversation, practice. But don't just write on a piece of paper what you're going to say and think, I'm going to read it 4 or 5 times and commit it to memory. Hear yourself say it. It is an absolute game changer.
And I've never thought of that one. So that is, I'm going to bank that one, Nigel. Thank you.
It's a really good. You should be doing it with your introductions. Stuff like that, or your opening question, or stuff like that. Because when you open your mouth, you know exactly what you're going to sound like.
Yeah, and you start off on the right foot then, because I imagine if your voice was to crack in those high stakes, or it just come out squeaky, or whatever it might be with the nerves and anticipation, it just sets a whole different tone.
And that's the thing with us guys. If we don't do it, you open your mouth and start talking, and it comes out 2 octaves higher than you intended, and doesn't sound like you. That affects your confidence, and you're starting off on the wrong foot. So practice out loud in the first person, so you know what you're going to sound like. And the other thing is, again, if you're going to go into a tough conversation, a difficult conversation, you are not on your own. Negotiation is a team sport. Have the people around you that you need to support you in those roles. Make sure that they're invested, that they know exactly what their role is within that negotiation. It might be feeding me information. It might be putting stuff on a board so I don't have to forget things. It might be just sitting there and encouraging me and just smiling and thumbs up when you're on the phone to somebody. Just have those people around you. I don't know about you, but certainly when I was running teams in the police before I became a negotiator, if I'd got a difficult conversation to have, I went in the office and I shut the door. And I locked myself away from the real world. I locked myself away from all the support that was there and available to help me while I had that tough conversation. And it came to me very late in the day. If you're going to have a tough conversation, make sure that you've got the people around you that you need so that you can be the very best that you can be.
I love that, because I think my audience particularly tend to be quite hyper independent, feeling like they've got to do it all on their own. And if they can't, then that somehow means that they're not good enough or they're weak. But to hear that actually, no, that is an elite strategy. It is not a sense of you can't do it. It's like, no, it's meant to be a team sport.
Yeah. So, if you've got a difficult phone call to have, don't sit there on your own. Bring somebody into the office, somebody you trust, somebody that's briefed and knows what the strategy is, what it is that you're trying to achieve. Put the phone on loudspeaker. They can be passing Post-it notes or little pieces of paper to you and stuff like that. If you've got a difficult Teams call to have, then have them sat off camera and just be honest and say, just so you know, I've got Peter with me. He's just off screen taking notes. He's not off screen taking notes. He's writing stuff down and holding pieces of paper up and giving you prompts and encouragement. If we would do that as hostage negotiators, why would you not do that in business? It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to have the right people around you, allowing you to be the best version of yourself that you need to be to influence that individual.
I think that's a bit of a mic drop there, Nigel. I love that. And as I say, for my audience particularly, I think that's such a strong message. I know people are going to want to find out more about you and kind of your services. So where would you direct them?
So if you're on LinkedIn, I kind of live on LinkedIn. So Nigel Taberner, if you find me on there. My website, I think www.nigeltaberner.com, but hopefully you'll put a link out.
I absolutely will, yeah.
For that. And yeah, get in touch. I love having online conversations and kind of continuing the conversation kind of after the event. So yeah, get in contact.
Thank you, Nigel. I absolutely love your approach because you're sharing like high stakes, high pressure, high performance conversations, but you do it in such a down to earth and relatable way. So I really appreciate this. I've loved what you shared with us today.
No, it's
Thank
good.
you.
And the beauty of it is, I don't feel like I'm giving any secrets away. It's common sense. I'm not completely lifting the lid on hostage negotiating, giving all these secrets away that are going to put lives at risk. It's just about good communication skills. It's just about connecting with people. It's about just forgetting about negotiating. Just have a meaningful conversation. If I can ignore the fact that somebody's waving a gun around, it's just a conversation between two guys. Why make it more complicated than it needs to be?
And then I think in our kind of AI world, having more humanness and more human conversations is so powerful. So thank you for that, Nigel. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me on. I've loved it.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, I'd love for you to share it on social media or with the amazing women in your life. I'd also love to connect with you. So head over to luminate-group.co.uk where you'll find ways to stay in touch. And if this episode resonated with you, one of the best ways to support the show is by subscribing and leaving a review on iTunes. Your review helps other women discover this resource. So together we can lift each other up as we rise. So thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.